Afternoon, everyone. Ryan, welcome.
Hey, pal.
Special guest.
Hey, Tommy.
Oh, yeah, how's it, guys? Thanks.
Welcome back, Tommy. Nice to have you with us again in the studio. It's always nice to have the guest in the studio. So thanks for joining us this afternoon, man.
No, you're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, first off, congrats on the new position. Since we last spoke, Tommy was promoted to the fleet captain, which we'll talk about a bit later, that being at Comair. So that's a nice position, Tommy, and it comes, and I know from what a lot of people have said to us, that's a well-earned position from a real, true aviator.
Oh, thank you very much.
And that's why you're here today.
Great.
Yeah. So we're going to go deep aviation today.
Looking forward to it. It's been an exciting week building up to this, and great to have you back in there, Tom.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. Yeah, we're gonna not different, I suppose, because we are an aviation podcast, but we want to actually, maybe look at things from a real pilot's perspective today. What I've picked up on the show, and something I'm really proud of, is that we're getting a lot of youngsters watching the show, listening to what we have to say. A lot of them in training at the moment, and then as well, Ryan, here at Comair, a lot of people that have seen our show, they influence a lot of the time by the things we talk about. So you've got to be careful sometimes with what you say or the direction that you give people, particularly youngsters. So to have someone like Tommy here certainly helps us in that regard. So you have been on the show before, but I'd want to just go back and give everyone a bit of a background. Tommy, your aviation career, man. Can we go for it?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, just quickly, third-generation pilot. My grandfather used to be was more a flight engineer at the good old SAA. Then my father was in the Air Force. He also flew for Comair for, 20 years. I joined Comair in 2007. But my career started straight out of school, went to 43 Air School. I was lucky enough to go down there. Did my comm there, managed to do it within a year. Then executive aerospace, that's where we met. I was very lucky. I'll never forget the day that I actually got the job. Flew there. It was what we called flight line, but maybe it's easier to say it as being like a RAM controller, ground support, or basically just doing everything with driving other pilots around and cleaning the aeroplane and loading catering, but all fantastic stuff just to basically learn everything that ties into, an aeroplane. And then from there onwards onto the Hawker Siddeley 748. Got to fly that for about 500 hours. Moved on to NIC, onto the late 410, which was mostly in Africa, world companies in Algeria. That was also a fantastic experience just to see that part of the world. And then I got the call for Comair, like I said, in 2007, joined the company as a junior first officer. Managed to get my ATP, I think it was in about a year or that after having started. And then just spend my time sitting as a first officer. And then I became a captain in 2013. That was a unique point in my career because there was an event. It was actually the day that I was supposed to do my first, let's call it solo flight as a captain, having been signed out that morning. I was doing a bicycle ride and I got hit by a car. Yeah. So I couldn't fly. And then while I was off sick for about 2 months, I did contact one of our managers and asked, look, is there something I could do? And then they pulled me into the flight technical department for basically as a performance admin. And from there onwards, I just work up to more of a performance engineer, if you can call it that. And I got involved with carbon emission, which we covered last time quite a bit. And then having spent in flight technical about 8 years, the opportunity to become a fleet captain came up, and I took it. Was successful, and it's been for the last 3 months, and I must say it's
enjoying it.
I'm loving it. It's really something else, and it's so nice for me to feel that I'm in the slot. Although technical, being a part of that, and then moving into fleet is two different worlds. But I'm loving this very much.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's always nice to hear the guys' stories where they started and that, and I think it always, it relates to us as well. Tommy, just going back, obviously, my connection with executive aerospace, it's always nice to hear what the guys have to say about it, and sort of, I'm proud to say that most of the stories that come out of it, the guys are always proud and happy to have flown there. And it's always, you know, in certain ways, highlights of many guys' careers. But I think, Ryan, you'd also agree with this. It was almost like a bit of a glory time in aviation. You know, Tommie mentioned that bit on Flightline. Are guys doing things like that these days? There's certainly less of it, but everyone was quite keen to jump in and do that sort of work.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe you don't really see that much these days. A lot of people going into flying, and they get their comms, they go get a rating on the biggest plane they can, and off they go. I mean, we see in Europe, you know, stories of guys coming out of flight school straight into, you know, some decent machinery. But back in our era when we started, it was very sort of focused on, well, you got to go put in the hard yards somewhere and then work your way up, which is exactly what you did. But it was a happy time of my career, Ryan. I'm sure you had similar sort of stories there.
Oh yeah, no. Look, when I look back at my flying career, it's been such a great journey. A lot of fun, a lot of hard work. Yeah, also to start up from the very bottom. You know, worked in ops at Aquarius in my early days, alongside a lot of guys that we still chat to now on the show. John Kearney was one of them, and you know, yeah, I did ops, lots of admin work, and I think in a lot of ways it was those sort of challenges and having to get through those rings in the ladder that set you up nicely for your career. And I suppose in a lot of ways it's kind of set me up for what we're doing nowadays. You know, I'm not no stranger to paperwork, etc. Anyway, it's a wonderful way to start your career. And like I said, I referenced John Kearney, and I actually want to mention he reminds me a lot now, or I want to say Justin, who's here. Yeah. Actually reminds me a lot of John Kearney in that sense. He's doing the same thing. He's, you know, busy with his comm. He's here. He's working hard in the quality department, but, you know, edging his way to his career. And he's got that ambition and that tenacity. And I look at John now. John's flying 747s overseas for a well-renowned cargo company. He's very happy. Also ex-Comair.
Yes, sure you know yes, I remember John.
And, you know, he's doing very, very well for himself. And I see guys like that, like Justin, going and doing well in their careers like that because of that same sort of mindset.
I always get a sense of pride to see guys like that have found success, and even, you know, here with Tommie, it's always nice to see someone that's found success in a very niche environment of South African aviation. I mean, let's face it, South African aviation is relatively small compared to the rest of the world, but it doesn't mean you can't find success. And I mean, yeah, you mentioned it. You're now at Comair, an airline that I think every true South African aviator is proud of, whether they've flown there or not. You know, it's an airline where there's a sense of pride about it. They hold a highest level of safety. Their training's been exemplary, and they've produced some awesome pilots, let's face it. And now you're sitting there as the fleet captain, Tommie. One of the areas that I've picked up certainly in the training environment here at Comair, there's a real lack of knowledge about what these managerial positions are in aviation. It's one thing to say, well, you're a fleet captain, you're a performance pilot, technical pilot, whatever it might be, but not a lot of people know about those things. And there's certainly not a course you go and do after your comm, you know, how to be a technical pilot or how to be a fleet captain for dummies. You know, it's not there.
It's not there, yeah.
You kind of learn it, you know, from the others that were in the position before. And I suppose you also have to stamp your authority on the role itself. My last role at SACS was the fleet captain on the CRJ. And I mean, I wasn't in that role for long, but I was certainly very proud to hold that position. And you holding the position now at Comair in this very difficult stage, I'm sure you've had to deal with, you know, a lot of the guys are going through tough times.
Yes.
And you obviously play an integral role in making sure that they have a sound mindset. It's about managing, the fleet and its personnel, but you're managing people.
Yes, absolutely. That's what it comes down to, is managing the people. And that's And that's part of the reason why I so love it, because you get a chance to make a difference, solve problems, and then in that you're making a difference in a lot of the guys' lives, in the company as well. For me, I see it as the best way to put it in a nutshell is as a fleet captain, you're the link between the human resources and the pilots itself.
Yeah.
It's an important role and a tricky position to be in a lot of ways, I'm sure. Having to make decisions because you got to stand on both sides of the line. Can't be easy.
Responsibility wise, I mean, you've obviously got the responsibility of the fleet, the people. You manage standards along the way. So, I mean, if I had to, if someone asked me here at Comair today, Brian, I want to be a management pilot. What is it, Tommie? And I know you've said you're managing the people, but it's a bit more than that, I suppose.
Yeah. It comes down to, for me, the way that I said, you become a servant. You have to serve these guys, and serving me doesn't mean, okay, all right, what do you want? I'll get it for you. It's a case of, okay, you're not doing something that you're supposed to. I also have to correct you, to make sure that all the behavior within the airline of the pilots is aligned to what the company needs to be in order to be successful.
Okay.
So you're a leader, but you're actually supposed to be a servant. That's the way that I see it. So and I think that's what's come down to any form of managerial position is you end up being a servant, whether it be directly up to the company or down to your pilots.
Well, that's a cool way to look at it. Ryan's smiling over there.
I was just going to say that's one of the most admirable explanations of that position I've ever heard. It's not often. It's very humble of you to put it that way, Tommie, I'd say.
And a nice way to explain it to someone else, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mentioned the difficult time. Those difficult times are not exclusive to Comair. It's exclusive to aviation in general. I mean,
absolutely.
It's this period for all of us has been an absolute nightmare in many respects. Things have picked up for us nicely, Ryan, at Comair. Forward bookings are good. January was incredibly busy. February's been a brilliant month. Looking beyond this into the year, the airlines are booking training, and not only are they booking training, we're getting airlines coming to us that want to come to us because of the quality of training that we offer as well, which is good. Part of my role is to make sure that we've got redundancy in certain areas, whether that's examiners, instructors, quality people, safety, whatever it might be. And I've always kept my finger on it and made sure that there were people available on standby. And, if we needed to call on people, they were there. And one of my first sort of projects, I suppose, starting off 222, was to make sure that we still have this redundancy and, we can carry on operating. And I'm very happy to say that when I started looking around and making sure that we've got, people available and expertise, that there's a lot less expertise available than there was in November last year, because a lot of those people have gotten jobs and they're busy flying. They might not be flying at their ultimate airline. They might not be in the ideal part of the world. Their families might not be with them. But the reality is they're flying heavy metal again, and it's a really, really good sign. And I notice in South Africa in particular, it makes you realize how small the pool is of experienced pilots.
Absolutely.
It's incredibly small, and I think we possibly underestimated that. During the initial part of 2020, it was evident that we were all at home, we were all hustling. What the hell are we going to do? We proud to say we tried to support some of the people as best we could, but now you look back and it's a totally different landscape to what it was a couple of years ago, and it's awesome.
It's hell of exciting, and the reason I'm even more excited about it is it kind of backs up something we said on the show quite a while ago. Was we alluded to the fact that when things do start opening up, it's going to create an experience gap, and not just in the flying or the cockpit sense of things, but across the board. And it's becoming more and more evident.
So, Tommie, that's obviously one of the things you have to manage, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always had the impression that Comair is you go to Comair because you want to go to Comair, and you seem to have held on to a lot of your staff, even though there's been incredibly difficult times. I mean, the business rescue is no secret and stuff like that, but the core group of the Comair people, and I put you in that group, are still there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's actually quite nice. I actually recently could see on LinkedIn, because it obviously reminds you when your job anniversary is up. And I mean, a lot of guys was say thank you and thank you to everybody that did. I haven't said thank you yet, but it's just not me. There's quite a few guys from Comair that you'll see 16, 17, 20 years. So yes, Comair has always been a career airline in this country. And yes, that's part of the thing where I think that's carried us up until now. Is because we got a big group of guys that's been with the airline for a long time, and that's sticking it out and making sure that it works.
Am I correct in saying Comair is the second oldest airline in South Africa?
Yes.
Yeah? So that makes it.
Well, I'm not sure which one it is, but I think we're pushing up to 8 years in existence.
Yeah, it's quite incredible.
It's awesome.
So we're very Comair centric today. We're very pro Comair, and we want to talk about Comair because. Let's face it, Comair has given us things to talk about. It's given us things to be positive about. When the green machine started flying again, it was positive news for us. And, we've needed that positive news from time to time. And we have, I'm talking myself and you, Ryan, we've got a lot of support from Comair pilots.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible amount of support, not only on the podcast, but, on LinkedIn, on social media. And we're very happy with that because some of those guys I've never actually even met.
Yeah.
And this show, obviously, with Tommie being here, we are a show for pilots around the world. We're a show for the pilot that gets up, that goes to work, that does his job without much fuss. And Tommie, you sort of epitomize that. So it really is great to have you here. From another point of view, just talking about prediction wise, African aviation, we know it's picking up.
Yes.
What's sort of your vibe?
Well, my vibe is things are really going to go up. To what extent? I mean, you see some of our other carriers that's really moving, looking to go regional. I mean, for us ourselves, it's just stabling in our fleet, and then from there onwards, building up. But what I'm seeing is people are flying again. Yeah. That's the big thing. And I mean, obviously that'll drive anything going forward. So the more that happens, I think it's going to be really great. Things that I've heard that kind of like it's sad in one way, but it's towards the industry. I was in Harare the other day, and we we're just talking about people saying how difficult it is now to drive around in those spaces, and that's why we got so many more people flying to Harare. That's great for the industry. So I can see into Africa itself, there has to be a lot of expansion because there's a need for people to travel, obviously safely and quicker. So I mean, there will always be more space for people to get down to Cape Town as soon as all the big boys start coming back on a regular basis that we have. So covering the domestics route and that kind of thing. But building out into Africa, I mean, that's always been the hottest topic. Yeah. And it seems like every time we just get there, there's something that just stops us from jumping out. And I'm talking about everybody, not just us as an airline and ourselves, but just to really serve the continent. That's where we really need to look into. And I think that's where things are going to happen.
That's cool.
Yeah, Tommie speaking our language here, like the service side of things, and it's kind of cool. I mean, playing your part in the African aviation recovery. I think the first little slogan we came up with back in early 2020 was
#support aviation.
Support aviation, but the other one was we wanted to play our part in the aviation recovery.
Yes. Yeah.
And realistically, we're not playing any part in the financial part of that recovery, but we'd like to think that we've played a part in at least sort of doing our best to keep one or two guys sane. But service to African aviation couldn't be said any better, and it's something that anyone that is doing that or is playing their role, whether it being flying for an airline like Comair, or even if it's just it's a wonderful thing.
Exactly. I got a lot of connections in the hospitality and tourism industry, and just to back that up, the industry is most certainly bouncing back at a rapid rate of knots, and it's just so exciting to see. We couldn't be more proud of everything that's going on and to see this recovery taking place. I've got another question for you, Tommie. With that said, we know that the likes of Emirates are going to start taking back crew again, and it's obviously going to lead to pilots being, interested in going back to Dubai or back to Emirates. And then obviously there's rumor that they're going to look externally again as well. So without a doubt, that might obviously, again, create a bit of a, like we've said on the show a couple of times, a vacuum in the South African pilot pool. How do you see that going? And
I'll definitely, I think it's going to have a significant effect this time around, even more so. I remember when I joined in 2007 in Comair, and there was this big exodus. I think I moved up at that time 60 positions on the seniority in 1 year. So I can definitely see it going in that direction. Whether it's going to be exactly the same or not, it might be even more. But yes, that it'll definitely happen. And I mean, we're just talking about Emirates here. I saw something the other day about Qatar getting a lot of Maxes, so I mean, that is okay. And our industry specifically having a lot of 737 rated guys, that's an easy move.
Yeah. I know Qatar are actually on a massive recruitment drive. And then that obviously leads me to my next question for you is, that said, being fleet captain, no doubt you'd be part of the interview panel when Comair is obviously interested in taking on pilots. So for our younger sort of aviation guys out there that are, finishing their com licenses, that are breaking into the industry, what would you, as a fleet captain of an airline in South Africa like Comair now, what qualities would you be looking for in these young pilots?
I like this question. This is not to put Tommie on the spot, but let's face it, Tommie, just to give you some perspective here, the type of training we do here at Comair was a total new thing for myself and Ryan. We were in an airline, I want to say, similar to Comair in certain culture ways, certainly for a period of time, not always at SA Express. But there was always a sort of core demand to make sure the training is correct, make sure we operate correct, make sure we, abide by world's best standards and things like that. And when we came to Comair, we started getting involved at Comair, we realized that when you're not in the closed environment of an airline, you have no control of the people that you're training. In other words, yourself at Comair, they're going to go through an interview process. They maybe even do a sim check ride, and you can vet the people that come in relatively well. So by the time you start training, you kind of know the customer you're going to have. And it made me realize the value of making sure that you do employ well, because oftentimes we do train people and you can tell on day one whether this person's going to make the course or not. A lot of the time it's got to do with attitude.
Oh yes.
I mean, it's a major thing. So yet there are youngsters out there that do want to go fly for an airline like Comair. They do want to get into maybe a big carrier like Emirates or something. So as a starting point, what are you no doubt are sitting on a interview board, possibly. What are you looking for that youngsters can genuinely start working on? I assume something like your background. I mean, even basing it on you worked flightline at exec, and I know the hard yards that you had to go through there. So something like that for me in an interview would carry a lot of weight because you've done the work. Young Leon that selling flying eyes, that story as well. He's trying to put his way through his com. He's got this. He's pushing along. That carries a lot of weight. What can people do, Tommie, to help that interview process, or even not even the interview itself? Whatever it might be, life in general.
Well, look, for me, if I was to sit on a panel and have a look at it, first of all, one's got to remember that there's a few processes that needs to be followed where there's no sort of personal interview involved. It's your psychometric testing, your simulator ride, those kind of things. And I mean, that speaks for itself.
Yep.
That skill. And I know then somebody might say, but I've only got 200 hours. And then the airlines only look at me at later stage. You'll gain that experience. But the big thing is attitude, just like you said. And for me, something that I've been brought up in the industry, and I realize that more and more every day, it's a privilege to fly. With that attitude, anybody can join any airline and make a difference within that airline. Because for me, if I sit in an office and as a fleet captain now dealing with some guys that's got medical issues and those kind of worries about that, you do realize what a privilege it is to fly. And if you see it for that and you focus on that every single day, I'm sure somebody will see it in an interviewing process. And then all you have to do in that interviewing process is actually make sure that you present yourself well. And I mean, we can get into that. I mean, we can talk forever about into an interview process. There's a lot of stuff on Google and that, and how to make sure you present yourself well. But attitude is absolutely the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's something you can't really
hide behind.
I think you wear that.
You can't fake it.
No, you can't. And while we were just talking about this, how exciting is it that we are back at that sort of,
when we're even talking about an interview?
You guys are right.
Isn't it lacquer?
Not even the fact that there may or may not be interviews. We know that there are interviews going on, in certain places. But how nice is it that this is a topic?
Yeah, guys need to start gearing up and paying attention and giving some thought to, if I got called up for an interview next week, how am I going to be prepared for this?
What am I going to say?
Attitude, preparation, all of those are very important things. And again, you touched on what a privilege it is to be able to fly, and we've said it a number of times where the guys are getting into this industry for the wrong reasons, and that's quite evident when someone comes through.
It's sad in a way, and it almost it brings the value of your aviation license down. It feels like you're letting the team down. Staying with interviews, would you have to go through an interview for the fleet captain position as well?
Oh yes, no. There was, it's a normal interviewing process, but I mean, obviously they put out the job description there, and then meeting the requirements, you can apply. And then once they've reviewed your application, then you're either successful or not. And then being successful, that you go into an interviewing process, and that's totally different towards a normal pilot interview, because you're not looking at technical skills or that kind of stuff.
They know you already. And
yes, but that's also not necessarily a great thing. That could count against you in an interview, because they do know you. So they might know your weak points, and then they can see, okay, hold on, that's maybe something that we have to focus on to see whether you've grown in it. So one can't just say, okay, look, they know me. Okay, here I am. So why are you interviewing me? So, but for me, to be honest, that was my 5th managerial interview that I had. All the interviews was a great experience, because I learned something from myself. And that's the big thing about an interview. If it's unsuccessful, don't see it as a total failure, because you've learned something. And you've learned something from yourself as well. A key thing with interviews, if you are in that position to ask that, is feedback. If you can get any form of feedback. I know some airlines, or not necessarily airlines, if I took any industry, the guys are not keen to give feedback. But the feedback that I got once I gone for all those managerial interviews helped me a lot in preparing for the next, or start doing things or conducting myself throughout, my progression to the next position, was using those feedback that I got.
Again, such a powerful message in that, never view failure as failure. It's just, it's going to set you up better for the next task or project or mission that you set yourself up for.
One of the things that's changed, we spoke about errors, and sort of us coming through the ranks was a different era to what it is now. But one of the things that we used to do, I mean, we were in that stage, and I'm not sure if this still happens. Lanceria, as an example, guys would get their uniform on, go to Lanceria, and walk around with a bag full of CVs and one there. And I mean, picture that today. If someone had to be lurking around the Comair premises all day waiting to meet you, Tommie, they'll probably get arrested before you get to meet the guy, because it's a different sort of, it's a different thing. So you could almost prove your attitude by being that guy that sort of hangs around, which you can't do anymore. So it's critical that you have something there that you can fall back on from an attitude perspective. So
you're talking like it just takes me back to how I used to harass SA Express. The amount of times I went through there, dropping my CV off time and time again. It took a good couple of attempts till eventually they They took the bait.
Yeah. Tommy and
Yeah.
us, a question come up here. It says from Craig Wood, what is it like managing the pilots with the company still in business rescue? Is there still a concern amongst the troops?
That is definitely challenging. For me, managing that is I focus on the facts that I have, and I try my best to get it out there and say, guys, I'm in it. I'm here. If there's something that concerned me, I've still got my family. I'm in the same boat here. But the way that I see it is I believe that we will be the best airline once again.
Yep.
And I'm just focusing on that and spreading that message. So, yeah, it definitely is very challenging. But the way I see it, and there was one of my messages I recently said, I said, I wish actually that every single pilot could see and hear what I see, because we've got the best people in the best positions trying everything to keep us doing what we're supposed to be doing and getting us back to where we all feel proud like we used to be about airline and being the best.
Yeah. And I suppose that one of the hard things is you guys know what it can be. And maybe being under business rescue, you have to be a bit more conservative with one or two things. But isn't it as well, the way I see business rescue is the longer it goes on, is it the more likely that you're going to get out of it? You know, we've been in business rescue. It didn't last too long, did it? So, you know, the fact that it carries on for a while, it kind of means that there's light at the end of the tunnel there. That's how I see it from the outside.
Look, I'd probably say, I mean, I'm shooting from the hip here, but
for a change.
But business rescue or not, I don't think anybody in any airline across the world, no matter how healthy or not the airline is ever going to feel 100% cushy and comfortable again. I mean, you'd be silly if you given what we've gone through as the world, the industry in general. No one's going to be.
Is that aviation or is that?
No, I think it's aviation. Yeah.
Do you only aviation? Because I mean, we're inclined sometimes to be a little bit narrow-minded and go, "Oh, we were so hard hit, and we hard done by." But here we're also talking about the fact that you start looking around again, and the expertise has already found jobs and careers, whereas you got other industries. I'm just trying to, there are other industries where there's an abundance of people that can do a particular job, and they were also hit. So it's not like there's 50,000 ATP pilots in South Africa all searching for a job. I know around the world it's a bit different, where they say 1/3 of pilots still don't have jobs. But if I'm not 100% convinced about that figure anymore, because if you just look around LinkedIn, and you start seeing there's a lot less open for work banners on profile pictures lately, and there's a few people even posting positive things about, they're excited about the new opportunity. So it's going to be this sort of snowball effect. And we know about the flight cancellations in the States. We've spoken about that week on week on week, about there are simply not enough pilots. It's going to happen, man. And then are we not secure? What is the next thing that's going to make us not secure? Is that not I doubt it's going to be another virus handling situation, because we've proven how poorly the world handled that. And look at what's going on in Hong Kong, still in Hong Kong. I mean, they could not have handled that situation any worse if they tried. And I'm convinced that it might not be within the next year or couple, 2 years, maybe a lot longer down the line. They will look back at that period, and I'm sure that they will find crimes against humanity with the way that they have treated people in that part of the world.
Yeah.
And in particular, foreign pilots. It was shocking. I don't bring it up now to be a negative side, but it's a stark contrast, the way it was if something's handled well and something is handled bad. And let's face it, it very much feels like people are like, this is done.
Yes.
Let's just have the official, meeting on Sunday night to say this is now over and let's get on with our business, and we're not going to close things down again. That's what it feels like. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So are we not going into a period now where we can, feel a bit more secure in our jobs? feel a bit more secure in our, particularly in our aviation careers. I think so.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
don't know. It's out for the jury.
Well,
huh?
look, I mean, at the end of the day, COVID's unique. But if you really go back in history, there's a few airlines that comes to mind, and this is not necessarily specific something that was driven by outside environments like the economy or the oil price or the COVID. How many airlines have truly, from when they started, I'm just talking about the big boys, have gone through where they did not have a hiccup, which was either on their own doing
Yeah.
or some external factor? I mean, the industry, the way that I always sell it to myself is flying still remains a luxury.
Yeah.
We've made it a necessity, for economy wise and the needs that's surrounding it. But to be able to fly, it's by saving time. So it's still a luxury. So it's prone to be cut if something goes wrong, if we have to. So that's the way that I see it. And for going forward, I mean, if I look just in my own time, I mean, my dad was with Flightstar, that closed down. Some other things happened. I mean, we had 2001. I mean, Comair was also not on a great side, but everybody was in it.
Yeah.
So we consistently, there's something. So what is certain in the airline industry? I don't know. It goes about how you conduct yourself, what you do for yourself, how you see the opportunities, and then go from there. And that's, I think, you secure or make things the most certain.
No,
Interesting topic. This.
it is.
I mean,
It's
you
a
could
nice
go on
one
for
to
days.
talk about. I mean, it's one thing for us in this stage of our careers. We were a bit burnt by the position we were in. Fortunately, we were able to shift into another aviation role. And the people that weren't, they were in a very difficult period for a while. But if you're a youngster and you're in the training environment at a flight school, I mean, I was doing a bit of work at a flight school over December. I wasn't working there. I was doing some training there, and it was packed. It was like I had to fight for the airplane to make sure I got the hours in during my allotted sort of leave. And a lot of these youngsters were there very hopeful about their upcoming career. And they were keen to talk and what's the best way of doing it, and should I, where should I apply first, and what should I go and do a rating, or should I wait for the airline to give me? There was a lot of this sort of, and let's face it, I mean, that's a relatively new thing. I mean, I stand corrected, but it does seem to be quite a busy time for this upcoming group that I think see this as an opportunity to get into aviation or get into a decent carrier sooner than they might have before.
We're seeing it here at Comair at the moment. I mean, the amount of guys coming through doing ratings on the ERJ that are fresh out of flight school, brand new, 250, 300 hours. There's a lot of them. Again, it also it goes back to what we were talking about earlier on in the show. The days of guys leaving flight school, going around finding a job in ops or whatever, those are done. The guys are literally coming out. They've got the money. Most of them. To come and do an ERJ rating, and they're straight into a regional jet.
The ERJ is a little bit like the King Air 200 of our I got a King Air rating.
Oh yes, I remember the Google. I never got one though.
Me neither.
Yeah, no, but it's I think it's a exciting period in aviation. There's no question about that. Going to some of our loyal supporters, as per usual. Leon, nice to see Tommie again. Rui, he says, how's it, guys? Janet, good afternoon, gentlemen. Go Aviate. Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Where's Jason now?
Yeah, where's Jason? Is he still in?
He's buying NFTs somewhere.
Yeah.
Not telling us about them.
He's not the only one.
Yeah. Keegan, hello, gentlemen. Rui's actually watching from Doha, he says.
That's cool.
Yep. David LaRue, great show, gentlemen. Looking sharp. Thanks, Dave. Dave's going to be on the show pretty soon.
Yes.
As well. They've started a nice show as well. The guys from Pilot and Sure, they've really walked the talk and supporting the industry. And like you said, real servants of the community here, played a major role in the community. So they've got a show and well worth the listen. I'll leave the link in the show notes there. Gustav, for you, and great watch again. Gustav sent me such a nice message and told me what he's up to and his new opportunity. and it was so nice, and it made me realize that this is why we've actually done this show, is to connect with people like that we wouldn't not have had the opportunity to. So that made me feel kind of cool. Keegan here, it's definitely picking up. Radar and tower controllers can barely take a break for water lately. It's good for the logbook because shorter routings aren't always guaranteed anymore.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's a nice way of putting it, Keys.
Talking about the interview process, Captain Laura here says, and being respectful. That's an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's probably a bigger topic all on its own. This respect side of things. We've had, there are these sort of people in aviation that do sort of have this, they command a bit of respect, and it's earned over time. It's not something you get on day one in your new position. And it must be nice, Tommie, I suppose, being in your fleet manager role, is to, you're learning about being a manager, but you also can steer that position in the direction that you want. You obviously want youngsters looking at you saying, if I get that position one day, I'm going to do it like Tommie's doing it. And I suppose that's one way of leaving a legacy or your mark at Comair, because I know that something like that would be very important to you.
Absolutely, it definitely is.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. It's so great to see all the support coming through. I've got messages. We've even got friends watching from Canada. Dino Jennings, good morning from Canada. Great podcast this morning. How cool is that?
Dino's more than a friend. He's a major supporter of the show as well. Old L as per normal. Having
also
sat
from Canada.
He's our Canadian correspondent. Having sat on both sides of the interview process, and more recently succeeding with 3 interviews, 95% of the time it's about the right attitude. So that's it.
So that seems to be the baseline theme, eh? Right. Absolutely. Attitude. What's that whole saying? The attitude determines altitude, eh?
Yeah, attitude's like we could go all day about the attitude, but it's certainly one of those things that you can start working on yourself too, but you need to then look at yourself quite honestly and start writing down on a piece of paper, well, this is what I can work on, this is where I'm weak, and I'm going to concentrate on those weaknesses. So it's also a bit about being honest
and seeking feedback,
taking
it as it comes, and in the sense of, if somebody tells you, oh look, you're not doing that great or you're doing that good, is to take it for what it is and then work on that.
This almost borderlines on what would ordinarily be a bit of an advisory. In fact, it was an advisory good couple of shows back, maybe even last year. Brian spoke about the Farnham Street blog,
or newsletter.
You introduced me to that Sunday brain food. Every Sunday they send out an email with a bunch of great things. Because it's a very quick read, but worthwhile, to spare a few minutes on a Sunday. And I found this last Sunday's one particularly motivating, and I thought it was worth a mention on today's show because it kind of falls in line with exactly what we've been talking about. And they're talking about one of the most practical life skills that no one talks about is turning your discipline into consistency.
Oh, consistency is important.
And you've walked the talk on that. I mean, you've been disciplined enough to study really hard, not only for your pilot's license, but other qualifications. And that only comes throughout a dedicated discipline and turning it into consistency. Much of what we've tried to preach about on the podcast as well. It's the consistency that's led us to, try and make this whole show better.
Well, Tommie made me feel quite bad actually, because during the initial lockdown period, we were on the podcast. You got to get out there, got to go do some courses, expand your skill set. If you want to do that, now's the time, now's the opportunity. Let's face it, you're not going to get the opportunity again. But I wasn't exactly at home doing a million courses, and I was doing courses on how to run a successful podcast. But I saw Tommie was like, "There's an Excel course, there's this course, done, graduated." So Tommie, you also took that opportunity during that time, and I don't think that was unnoticed. I think more people notice that than what you probably even think.
Okay, well that's great to know. Thank you. It's something I just thought of now. Sorry, I mean you said 45 minutes. I think we can run into much longer than that very quickly. Is that I can't remember where I saw it, but you become the books you read.
Yeah.
And when it comes to attitude, I've learned a lot through obviously being third generation pilot, but there's some of the books, and I mean, I'm happy to get them out there if somebody's interested. Good World War II books and that kind of thing, and you read that, and then you understand where flying comes from, what those guys really needed to do. Someone had a conversation with me the other day about being in the simulator of a Spitfire and how difficult it actually was to fly that thing. Now you're diving down, shooting at someone. Your cannons are not firing at the same time, so you now have to try and shoot this thing. Something's shooting back at you. That's what those guys were doing. Read about that. Understand where, flying has really come from. And that builds your attitude. So the books you read, you become. So I just thought of it when you started talking about that.
Yeah, that's very cool.
That's
actually.
brilliant. Excellent advice. And kind of makes you think that a reverse thruster deploy at V1 would be a walk in the park in that instance compared to that.
Absolutely. Just think about it. Something's firing at you, you're trying to shoot at them, but now your own airplane is working against you to get that guy. Yeah, and that's those guys. And there's guys that live to tell those stories. Eh?
It's very cool.
You mentioned a new podcast. I learned about flying from that. It was cool. Obviously, there's the book out was excellent from that perspective. But then someone we actually had on the live show a while ago, the Old Pilot's Logbook, Byron Edgington.
Byron Edgington. Yes.
Yeah. And that was excellent. He, flew in Vietnam and all the rest, and just some of those stories. I know Ryan actually came in and said, "Yeah, you won't believe. I've met this guy, and the stories are excellent. It's written by, he's a pilot,
Yeah.
But that's a lovely thing, Tommie. I think some of our advisories have been books along the way. Eh?
Yeah,
Daily Stoic was one. I like that from an attitude perspective.
Mm.
Read a little bit a day. I always find in the morning, if you can read something, then it gets your attitude right for the day. So that's my go-to thing. But is that the Farnham Street? Are we going to go again with the Brian Air advisory on that one?
No, look, I just thought I would throw that in there. But no doubt you've got an excellent advisory this week. So let's have it.
Well, I think quite a few people saw we were up to we were buying some weird things this week. So I sort of I think got you quite interested in the NFT space. Jason says he's busy buying NFTs in between studying. So NFTs, don't ask me to explain it now, but we'll do a show on that at some point. And my advisory with this is it actually also relates more to an attitude thing. We're not telling people to go and buy NFTs. But what I've realized, and particularly in the corporate environment, if you bring in something new, something of value, maybe it's a new bit of tech or a new way of doing something, there will, and you've got a group of people that you are presenting this to, there will often be quite a lot of pushback with this new idea. And a lot of the time, the pushback is because there's a lack of understanding of the new idea. It's not necessarily that the rubbish idea is not going to work. There's a lack of understanding, or there's this sort of, I don't want to know about that because I'm never going to know about that. And I think we're talking about this NFT space. There's a lot of people that don't understand it, and there's a bit of pushback. So we're not saying go buy NFTs, but it is this sort of new, there's a Web3's coming along. It's a whole new space for online. And it would be nice to have a good understanding of what that is. We actually intend to do a show about that in the very near future. We'll talk about it a bit more. But my advisory there is, what does Jordan Peterson say? It's the things you do not know are far more important than the things you already know. So don't push back against something simply because you don't understand it. Listen, get the feedback, as Tommie said, and then use it to make yourself better, wiser, with more knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, you could almost take it and say that I was going down the rabbit hole with you, because it was like, hey, I saw you bought an NFT, and he's like, do you want to buy one? I'm like, well, let's do it, jump into it. But I mean, the more I got into it, the excitement was there, because I'm actually starting to learn so much more about what's actually going on, and I find it very exciting. So
I'm
There's
one
the
of those.
message.
I'm one of those people that can only learn something if I'm actually doing it. I battle to read about something straight away and then understand it. But just going back to our guys here, Keegan, I think keeping crew morale up during this time must be the hardest thing for someone in a management position. As a pilot, we forget that an airline is a business and the decisions made are in the best interest of that business. Yeah, no doubt there. Andrew Evans here. He says, well said, Brian. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for your support, Ace. And again, lots of ads, hiring and training happening in Canada right now, and the predictions are starting to become a reality regarding the pilot shortages.
Okay.
Great news. Dino Jennings, you mentioned as well there in Canada. And Janet agrees with you. Brain food is brilliant. Highly recommended. Adrian Bardenhorst, hey guys, thanks again for the great content on the show and the positivity. You give us guys in Hong Kong some hope for the future of aviation when it no doubt looks rather bleak there. Yeah, Flip. We behind you guys big time. I really feel for those. Some of the pictures. I mean, I'd like to actually put some of the pictures on here and show people the conditions that some of these guys have to live under at the moment, under constant surveillance. They go wearing tags. They've got. I mean, it's a crime, man. It's an absolute crime against the way that they are being treated. And look, I know you look around the rest of the world today. Big news this morning. What's going on? Between Russia and the Ukraine. So you might look at Hong Kong and say, well, who cares? There's a war going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, this has been going on for months and months and months, and it's absolutely atrocious. So what I would say to those guys out there is it really feels good here at the moment in South Africa. It feels positive, not only in South Africa, but in the rest of Africa. We're seeing guys getting jobs with good airlines all the time. We're hearing we're getting calls to say, Brian, I got the job, and thanks for helping with this, and it's happening. So if we can do anything, it's just to say it's definitely, we've seen the turnaround on this side, and strength to you guys over there. Just keep pushing on.
100%, guys. We're behind you, and definitely feel for the conditions that you are under at the moment. But despite all that, the guys have always been very positive and supportive along the way. They don't moan too much. They're being very real about what's going on there. And look, I have no doubt things will turn around for them, and they will find, with jobs opening up elsewhere, no doubt, better flying positions.
You make a key point though, because none of these guys that we've been talking to have moaned a lot. They're not moaning.
They're just saying,
they're like,
this is what's going on.
Yeah, this is the way it is, and we look at that and go, I'm not so sure how I would handle that situation. Go Aviate chat talking about attitude, and as we start transitioning back to normal, to reflect on our experiences through the pandemic and critically analyze where we did well and where we could have handled challenges better, equipping ourselves to better handle future adversity. That's from Jason. Never short of a bit of very handy advice.
Always. No, it's awesome, man.
Leon, all new tech as early adopters, and they get rewarded for taking the plunge first. Yep, that's it. All about that. Justin Kaplan says, hi gents, great show as always. Justin's been an awesome supporter of us. Thanks, Justin. He always gives my posts a bit of a like. We all got those people that we know. We can post something, and even if it's really rubbish, we'll get the loyal supporters that give us a like. And I think our podcast has been a bit like that as well, Aaron.
We've
had a couple of shows where we said, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. But we still get the guys saying, hey, great show, and makes us feel good.
Well, Justin, fellow fleet captain, he's given me a lot of support since I started. So how's it, Justin?
Awesome.
Thanks for supporting the show.
Fantastic.
Tommie, I've really enjoyed it here today with you. I mean, we wanted to give Comair a nice punt. Comair has been it's a absolute staple here in South Africa. The airspace would not be the same without you guys flying around in it. And as I started off the show, I think every single South African is proud of Comair one way or another. And I'm certainly proud to be associated, even if in a very small way, to their current fleet captain. So thanks for joining us today, Tommie. It's been fantastic to have you on the show, man.
Thanks, guys. Really, and I really appreciate the good words and the great wishes for Comair. And yeah, looking forward to the next show.
Yeah, you're going to be on
Excellent.
again. You're gonna tap back into the green energy side of it. You got a hell of a knowledge there, and I'd like to dive back into that again. Ryan,
Cool.
I'm kind of bummed. We've been chatting for an hour already. It's like the time has just flown. You know, I hate it when your finger starts getting closer to pushing the knobby.
Yeah,
To say this is the end of the show.
Yeah.
Tommie, it's been an honor, man, having a chat with you again. You really are a great example out there to young aviators, and thanks very much for that and your positive influence. And yeah, can't wait till the next one.
Thank you very much. I really
Cool.
appreciate that. Thanks.
Some housekeeping news, however. My esteemed colleague over here, Mr. Perrock, has decided that enough is enough. We've done a real handful of episodes in a row, and he said, stuff you, Brian, I'm going on leave. So I don't know what you have planned for next week, but Ryan's going to be off at the beach with his family on a well-deserved break. So yeah, we're not going to be here next week. We're taking the week off. I think a well-deserved week off. So we're going to use that to recharge the batteries a bit. We got one or two little things we want to bring to the game, and we need to improve on. And I'm going to use the next week to do that. So yeah, please forgive us. We won't be here next week. We'll miss you all. And but that's not because of me. That's because of my Ryan. He's often on leave, if you might have noticed.
Shots fired, and Ryan takes the heat again. No, I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, look, unfortunately, yeah, it'll be a week. I'm out of here, but yeah, I'm looking forward to some family time and taking my little guy to the beach to see the sea for the first time.
It's well deserved, bro.
Oh, cool.
Well deserved. Ryan's one of the hardest working guys I've ever met in my life. So well deserved there. Marcel, thanks for your kind words. And Captain Laura, thank you so much. Great work, guys. I will help promote the podcast. Well, can't wish for anything more there. Really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to be here today. Thanks, Tommie. See you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Everyone,
Thanks
bye
a lot.
for now.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.